Hello friends, it's Dr. Reese Goodall here, and I'm back with a series of videos talking about essay writing, specifically how you begin approaching an essay, how you research, how you develop an argument, how you pull it all together. In this next series of videos, essentially I'm going to offer all my tips, thoughts, advice on how to get this right, and then I'm going to present an incredibly long masterclass session after all these videos are up. So my initial thoughts on this topic are that essentially thinking about an essay begins really a long time before you begin actually writing it. And much of that is sort of knowing what's on offer to begin with. So in many an academic module, you will already have a list of questions provided at the start, and be they the mock essay questions, be they the actual ones. But sort of know if you can see them early on, knowing that you're able to see them, knowing that you're able to think about that as you're taught the content is very, very useful. Alternatively, it's also worth knowing if you have an option to make your own question. So again, you can have that in mind. So if there's something in the content that really speaks to you, but it's not specifically in the questions that you're allocated. Many academics will be very happy to work with you and devise your own question. So even before you're thinking about writing, know what's available. You can sort of plan and be thinking about essays. You can be thinking about writing them before you've even seen the content that is relevant. And I think that's really worth doing, having that knowledge in your mind. If you can already see the assessments before you've done the work, it's really, really beneficial and useful. The question that then emerges is what makes a good essay question. Now, if you have questions provided, theoretically they should all be good. There should all be stuff there that is useful, and sort of if you approach it, you'll be able to unpick. The people who write these questions are not trying to sort of set you up to fail. They will have written these questions with a view that you'll be able to address any and all of them. So I think really there are three main questions to ask yourself when you're thinking about topics. And if you are able, so if there's a question that you look at that answers all three of these points in a really good way, it's a strong contender, really. So topic number one, does a topic interest you? Theoretically, all essays will be concerned with module content, etc. Is it something that when you learned about it, when you did the discussions in class, etc., it really spoke to you? Was this a topic that chimed with you, that particularly interested you? If you have that, that always makes it really easy to sort of chime in and write a question to research it. And linked to that is, do you have lots to say? So this is sort of almost sort of alongside the does it interest you, is do you have lots that you want to talk about? A topic might be interesting or it might be dreadful, but could you sort of write about it for whatever your word count is? If you're asked to write, I don't know, a 2,000 word essay, do you have enough thoughts there to be able to even meet that? And if you can find something that interests you and that you think you have a lot to say about, that is a really wonderful combination. And then that links into the third point, I think, which is the one that sort of nudges sort of essays up into the sort of the higher grade classifications, which is what exists already. And do you have things to say? Can you bring in new things to the conversation? And all of the text that you discuss normally will have been written about. There will normally be conversation already, and you'll probably have seen this in lectures, in seminars, in sessions, in reading lists, etc. So what exists already, and is there something that you're seeing that's not there? Can you sort of add something new to the gap? Um, if you think you can, if you have something that ticks all three of those boxes, then it's a really strong contender for a good question. Coupled with the questions is what the question actually wants. So as a marker and someone who's marked many an essay in my time, what we judge on is how well you respond to the question that is asked, as well as other things I'll get into. But the key thing is you must answer the question. And so what does the question actually want? And you will likely see words like evaluate or discuss or contrast. Um, and it's worth sort of unpicking specifically what the question is asking you for. So if you're being asked to discuss something, it's quite a generalised, it's likely, discuss this particular thing. There's a more generalised thing there that you'll need to sort of come up with a specific argument. I'm going to talk arguments in a later video. If you're being asked to contrast, You're bringing in two ideas or two sources and putting them against each other in some capacity. If you're evaluating, you're sort of weighing up. You're looking at a particular idea, you're looking at a particular source or a time period or whatever, and sort of casting some informed judgment as to its value or use. It's maybe the case that some questions use quotes, and they use ideas from the primary or secondary sources and ask you to discuss them, ask you to sort of analyse them. And there's no inherently better question. It's worth saying, I'm not going to say one of these things is better than the other, but they speak to different skill sets. They speak to different ways of fashioning an argument and fashioning a question. And it's a matter of thinking about sort of which of those particularly works well with you. Are you someone who would prefer sort of the in-depth focus on one particular source? Are you someone who would like to sort of put two things against each other? Are you someone who would like to unpick a particular quote or a particular idea? Think about that and see if there's a question there again that speaks to you in that way. If you can sort of see an argument emerging, if you can look at a question and think, I know how I would answer that, I know broadly what I would do to respond to it, then that is a really useful thing. And sort of being able to respond to the question is sort of job number one of an essay, really. If you're able to do that well, then that sort of sets you up well, I think. Final thought on choosing a question is, of course, the other option, an option that I think is normally floated, but is certainly rarely taken up, which is devising your own question. And this is something that sort of perhaps the confidence to do so more comes in later years, but it is in most places an option, and I'm not going to say that for everyone, I'm not going to make that guarantee. But broadly speaking, normally you have the power to fashion your own essay question. This would be in conversation with the module convener or lecturer, and they would help make sure that it actually sort of meets some degree of thoroughness and that you're sort of able to do it. But making your own essay question can be a really powerful thing to do. I've had a few students on modules I've taught before that have done this. And normally these essays are really strong because it means the students have seen something, has spoken to them, they've seen an idea or an argument and want to explore it further. And so what does creating your own question look like? Well, broadly speaking, you're operating within those same sort of realms of the existing essay questions. So you're thinking about sort of examining an idea and examining a text, you're interpreting, you're putting text in conversation, but you may want to go beyond the realms of the specific question. So there are ways of doing this. A question might be analyse this particular text, this particular primary source in relation to an idea on the module. You might want to do a question that looks at a different text. It might be the case that some of the secondary material has really spoken to you that you think can be unpacked. It might be the case that you want to, I don't know, compare a primary source with a secondary source, etc. If you're seeing things that really speak to you, knowing that the options there, broadly speaking, and I say this with making no guarantees for anyone, but knowing the options broadly there to essentially devise your own look at the topics, is that you've found a way in that you want to explore, is normally very, very useful. It's normally effective. And it's something that is not most generally on offer to students, I think. If you're seeing something or want to discuss that, first port of call, always talk to your lecturer, talk to the module convener, and they will advise you further. But know that that is something that, broadly speaking, is an option that is available. An option that's rarely taken up, but it often results in some very interesting work. So here was some of my reflections on choosing an essay question. So as I say, I'm going to put out a series of videos on different stages of essay writing. So we're going to look at plotting and preparing. We're going to look at defining an argument. We're going to look at writing an intro and a conclusion. And we're going to look at proofing and editing. And after that, I'm going to produce an incredibly long masterclass video that goes through sort of every question I would be asking, every step I would be thinking about in sort of long, I'm going to say excruciating detail, hopefully not excruciating. But yes, if there is stuff that you think would be useful here, I'm conscious that as I'm putting this out, it's nearing sort of essay periods for a lot of unis. So please do comment below and share any tips that you think relevant here as well. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward, hopefully, to seeing you in the next one.